Good morning and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. This is actually the third time I have welcomed you. First of all, when I started up this morning, my computer decided to do a major update, and then I did the whole live stream and found out Facebook hadn't started correctly, and so then I did it again, and apparently many of you don't have the audio. It didn't pick up the audio, so we're trying for a third time now. Also, some of you may have noticed that I'm not in my church office. That's because I have COVID and I'm isolating away. Now for today's live stream. Let me get to it. I realized when I restarted here to get everything going. Let's see, one more. There we go. There's an old joke that tells of the Pope one day descending alone into the deepest cellar of the Vatican Library, looking at one ancient manuscript after another. After all day down there alone, a cardinal ventured down the stairs to check on the elderly pontiff. As he drew near to the room where the Pope was, the cardinal heard a distraught wail and deep moans. He rushed ahead, fearing the pontiff was ill or injured. He pushed open the door, and there was the Pope with his head down on the table, crying, "It says, celebrate." Now that's just a joke, but you can imagine the consternation of finding that the rule about priests being celibate actually used the word celebrate. Nevertheless, that joke does help point the way to understanding Jesus' hard saying today. We are in our second week of looking at some of the things Jesus said that are hard for us to follow or sound harsh in our ears. Today is no exception, and this is one we might struggle to understand. In his gospel, Luke tells us in his 14th chapter, "Now large crowds were traveling with him, and he turned and said to them, 'Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple.'" Indeed, this sounds pretty harsh. Surely Jesus doesn't mean that we should really hate our families, particularly after what we heard just yesterday about loving everyone, even our enemies. I've titled these 2 weeks, "He Said What?" And that may be how we are feeling when we come across a saying like this today. Most biblical scholars think that Jesus is using a bit of hyperbole here. Hyperbole is an exaggerated statement or claim that is not meant to be taken literally. It's meant to offer an absurd example to make a different point. A modern example of hyperbole might be someone saying, "I'm so hungry I could eat a horse." Well, that's not likely to happen, but we get the idea that the person is pretty hungry. Other examples might be a person who says, "I'm so tired I could sleep for a week." Or, "These clothes cost me an arm and a leg." Not really, but we get the idea. Well, the same thing is happening here when Jesus talks about hating those close to us. And that's where priests being celibate comes back in. You see, the point of a Roman Catholic priest being celibate is that it is a sign that they love Christ more than any other relationship they have. They are wholly and fully committed to Jesus and not distracted by any other allegiances or relationships. In this hard saying, Jesus isn't asking us to hate those closest to us. Rather, he is urging us that our love and devotion to God, to Christ, be the primary thing in our lives. If we were to soften Jesus' language here, we might say, "Whoever comes to me must love me more than father, mother, and so on." It's not that we hate those people. It's that our love for them is less than our love and commitment to God. Now that says more than we might think at first. Most of us have a pretty strong love for our fathers, mothers, and all those other folk Jesus mentioned. So if we have such great love for all those, how much more love are we called to have for Christ? Our love for Jesus is overwhelming as God's love for us is overwhelming. Another thing that's going on here is that Jesus is convinced that there's an urgency to our love for him. It's not something we can put off. The time is now. We can't be complacent. Jesus is among us. We are called to see what God is doing and to respond here and now. We are supposed to love our family. We are supposed to love our neighbor. Most of all, we are called to love the God who loves us. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.